Hello, welcome to Arirang News. I'm Daniel Che. Let's start with the headlines. South Korea's National Intelligence Service reports that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had his defense minister executed in dramatic fashion. The crime, disloyalty, and disrespect. To minimize the public's financial burden and help revitalize the economy, President Park Geun-hye emphasized the effectiveness of state spending and the need to speed up financial reforms. Korea's main rival parties continue to wrangle over the pension bill reform, raising concerns that they may put off voting on other bills. We begin with some big news coming out of North Korea. The regime's Defense Minister Hyon Yong-chol was executed last month for disrespecting leader Kim Jong-un after having exhibited inappropriate behavior that angered the young leader. Our Han Da-eun takes a closer look at the execution and the possible reasons behind it.
Insubordination to Kim Jong-un and neglect of duty. These appear to be the reasons why North Korea's Defense Minister Hyon Yong-chol was executed in public. Seoul's National Intelligence Service, in a confidential report to the parliament, said Tuesday that Hyun was shot dead with an anti-aircraft gun at a military school on April 30th, with hundreds of soldiers watching. The spy agency said Hyun had frequently expressed his dissatisfaction with Kim Jong-un's leadership and neglected to follow Kim's orders on several occasions. He even dozed off during a speech given by Kim at a large-scale military gathering, a behavior that is intolerable in a state like North Korea. Still, the execution comes as a surprise. Hyun, a four-star general, had maintained his status as the number 2 man in the North Korean military until very recently. In addition, he had paid tribute to the late leader Kim Jong-il and the country's founder Kim Il-sung most recently at the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun last month, alongside top military officials, and attended a series of events hosted by the Korean People's Army. Some pundits assert that the execution may be linked to Hyun's recent visit to Russia. Hyun visited Moscow to make arrangements for Kim Jong-un to attend Russia's Victory Day ceremony, which would have been Kim's first trip abroad since taking power 4 years ago. But it was an appointment the young leader didn't keep, and there is rising speculation that it may have been because Hyun failed in his diplomatic mission there. The spy agency says it is now looking closely into the political situation in Pyongyang and taking all possibilities into account. Han Da-eun, Arirang News.
And North Korea's recent announcement that it successfully tested a submarine-launched ballistic missile has raised concerns over its arms capabilities. But international experts are skeptical about Pyongyang's claim. They say the North's development of the missile is still in its early stages. Our Son Jung-in tells us more.
During a meeting hosted by the website 38 North in Washington on Tuesday, a veteran North Korea military expert raised doubts about Pyongyang's self-proclaimed successful underwater ballistic missile launch. Joseph Bermudez at All Source Analysis said he believes Saturday's launch was conducted from a barge submerged a few meters below the water and not from a submarine as claimed. He cited satellite imagery showing a submarine docked next to a barge. Speaking via video conference, Bermudez said that the test seems to have been focused on checking the launch technology, which usually happens in the early stages of development with missiles like this.
Skeptical that it was actually conducted from the submarine that we've observed so far. I think it would be more likely that it would be done from a barge.
Bermudez also said he suspected the photos of the launch released by the North could be photoshopped or manipulated in some way in order to exaggerate progress in its missile development. He pointed out some inaccuracies in the image, saying the photo shows no visible flame coming out of the missile's engine despite the reflection of a bright pink shadow in the water. Bermudez said he seriously doubted that North Korea would be able to conduct a test from a submarine that was only launched last October. He did note, however, that the North has made incremental improvements in its submarine and ballistic missile capabilities. Seoul's defense ministry shares that view and has urged the North to cease its missile development. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Coming back to South Korea, a shooting at a reservist military training camp in Seoul has shocked the nation. The motive for the shooting is unknown, but some experts have raised questions about the training methods that could have played a part. Our Connie Kim reports.
What was supposed to be a regular training session at a military training camp turned deadly on Wednesday after a reservist opened fire on his peers, killing one and injuring 3 others before turning the gun on himself. The shooting occurred at around 10:44 a.m. at the facility in Daegok-dong in southern Seoul. The 3 men were rushed to hospitals nearby, and one is reported to be in critical condition. Army officials said the incident happened after the 24-year-old shooter, identified by his surname Che, was handed a rifle for shooting practice. Not much is known about Che, but a high-level military official said the soldier was under supervision for depression and internet addiction. The motive for the shooting is still unclear, and an investigation is ongoing. However, some experts have raised questions about the military supervision system.
When a soldier is put under supervision, the problem is that their peers know about it, which could make adjusting to the military even more difficult. The order for supervision should be kept secret, and in this case, it resulted in the worst-case scenario of a shooting.
Kim added that the effects of the current military supervision system could have caused Che to retaliate against it, even though he was discharged from the military in 2013. 68 accidents have been reported during reservist training sessions over the past 5 years. Given that and the recent shooting, the Defense Ministry and the Army say they are considering to introduce new safety measures at reservist training camps. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories, at an annual pre-budget meeting to discuss Korea's fiscal policy for the next 5 years, President Park Geun-hye expressed concerns about overspending on state projects and subsidy management. She touched on the urgency of adopting the so-called pay-as-you-go system from the U.S. to more effectively manage the budget. For details, we turn to our Choi Yu-sun.
Stressing the need to maintain the country's financial soundness to protect people's livelihoods, President Park Geun-hye directed officials to review state projects from square one when putting together the budget this year. She said projects that are found to be invalid or redundant should be eliminated. She also called for greater transparency in the state subsidy management system to prevent budget leaks. According to government data, Korea posted a deficit of nearly $28 billion last year. To better manage the budget mid to long term in an aging society with increasing demands for welfare, the president said there's an urgent need to adopt a pay-as-you-go system like in the U.S., where new spending or tax cuts must be paid for by a tax increase or spending reduction. She said the policy, which prioritizes fiscal restraint, has helped the U.S. government to achieve a budget surplus of $55 billion over the past 5 years. Japan has implemented a similar policy to maintain its fiscal health. President Park also took aim at the parliament for what she characterized as its imprudent spending through legislation. The presidential office says too many bills that require massive expenditures are submitted to Parliament without a proposal for ways to finance the plans. Urging lawmakers to approve pending bills related to the pay-as-you-go system, President Park compared the system to the way a homemaker would manage the household by first reducing unnecessary expenses when there's demand for new spending. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's 2 main political parties have shown no sign of reaching a compromise on a bill to reform the country's 2 pension systems, leaving the future of that and other bills in doubt. The main opposition, New Politics Alliance for Democracy, wants to move forward with that bill, while the ruling Saenuri Party now says the 2 systems should be dealt with separately and the civil servant pension reforms passed first. Our Kim Young-gil has more on this ongoing tussle.
As debate over the pension bill continues, one party has gone on the defensive, and the other is in offensive mode. On Wednesday, ruling Saenuri Party chief Kim Moo-seong conveyed his discontent with critics who say the reform plan was drawn up hastily, adding that consensus was only reached after 4 months.
The civil servant pension reform bill was discussed by various interest groups, and they settled some of their differences. We asked for cooperation from the opposition party to pass at least the civil servant pension reform bill, as agreed on May 2nd.
Meanwhile, the opposition criticized the ruling party for scrapping the original plan and the presidential office for meddling in parliamentary affairs.
President Park Geun-hye has blamed the National Assembly for not passing the civil servant pension reforms and emphasized that the National Pension Reform Plan will place a heavy burden on taxpayers. But there's no evidence for that. The president is just instigating conflict.
The party struck agreement earlier this month on a bill covering reforms to both systems, but never voted on it because of argument over a clause related to the national pension scheme. That part of the plan would increase the payout to 50% of a subscriber's pre-retirement income from the current 40%. The presidential office, however, rejected the plan, saying the 10% increase will come at a cost of $1.5 trillion through 2080. Given the impasse, there is growing concern that lawmakers may put off voting on other bills, only to come up empty-handed at the end of the May session. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Youth unemployment for the month of April hit a record high not seen since 1999, and the growth in the number of new jobs created last year was the lowest in more than 2 years. But can you blame the dismal employment forecast on the weather? Our Kwon So-hwa has more.
April was not a good month for job seekers, as less than 2,600 jobs were added from the month before. That's an increase of 216,000 on year, but the lowest monthly rate of increase in 26 months. Experts attribute the slow growth to bad weather. After all, last month was the rainiest April in over 4 decades, with more than 14 days of rain. That helps explain why sectors that are affected by the weather, like agriculture, construction, and accommodation, saw significant drops in the number of new jobs. And that's why the dull figures are just temporary, according to an official at the Finance Ministry. But things might be more serious for people ages 15 to 29. With April's youth unemployment rate at 10.2%, the job market for young people in Korea is an increasingly daunting place. According to Statistics Korea, that's the highest percentage recorded in the month of April since related records were first compiled in 1999.
Due to concerns that Korea's economy will grow at a slow pace for the long term, it's unlikely that the youth employment rate will improve, as companies are burdened by the amount of money it takes to train inexperienced young people.
And with so many young Koreans in part-time jobs seeking a permanent workplace, the actual unemployment rate in that group is higher than 11%. Kwon So-hwa, Arirang News.
Property assets still account for more than half of Korea's national wealth. According to the Bank of Korea's national balance sheet for 2013, Korea's net national wealth was just over $10 trillion, up 3.5% from 2012. That's about 7 times the nation's gross domestic product. On average, Korean households of 3 members had just over $300,000 in net assets, with more than 60% of that property. But the growth of Korea's fixed asset input for production slowed to 3.7% from 4% in 2012, hinting investments in this area may be slowing down. Children in Korea are the least happy with their lives among their peers in other OECD nations, but the Korean government is working to remedy that with a 5-year plan. The National Action Plan announced Wednesday targets 4 key factors for improving children's lives, preparing for the future, health, safety, and companionship. The plan will also offer special services to working parents like child care support and parenting advice. The move comes after Korea ranked at the very bottom of a 2013 OECD survey on children's satisfaction with their lives. Korea scored just 60.3 points, which is far below the OECD average of 85. With the plan, the Korean government hopes to raise children's satisfaction level to 77 points by 2019 and to 85 points within the next 10 years. People in Nepal are living in a state of fear after the country was slammed by yet another powerful earthquake on Tuesday. Authorities say the death toll from the latest quake has reached at least 83, while roughly 2,000 have been injured. The second quake comes less than 3 weeks after Nepal was devastated by the first 7.8 magnitude tremor that killed more than 8,000 people there. With the details, here's our Kim Hyun-bin.
The U.S. Geological Survey says the second earthquake, measured at a magnitude of 7.3, struck near Mount Everest early Tuesday local time, and was followed by two separate aftershocks.
I felt really scared this time. I was afraid that what happened to my house or something, like hope nothing was happened in my home. So I just ran here. I was very scared at that time.
Nepal has been desperately trying to recover and rebuild ahead of the monsoon season, which starts next month. This latest quake adds to the fear and hardship residents have been going through since the first 7.8 magnitude quake struck on April 25th.
We have started to feel comfortable and everything has become normal, but today's massive earthquake makes us feel that our place is not safe anymore, so we decided to come back to this place, the open theater, where we were staying when the first quake happened.
Meanwhile, a U.S. military helicopter sent to support relief efforts in Nepal has gone missing with 8 people, including 6 U.S. Marines on board. The Pentagon says it hopes the chopper made a safe emergency landing, as a U.S. aerial search before nightfall did not find any trace of a crash site. Helping with the relief efforts, the Korean government says it will send an emergency response team to Nepal on Wednesday. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And before we wrap up, we have some breaking news. North Korea notified the South on Wednesday afternoon that it will conduct an artillery drill off the western sea border sometime between May 13th and 15th. We'll have more details in our later newscast. For now, we thank you for watching, and we'll have more updates at 10 p.m. Korea time, so do join us then. This has been Daniel Che.